All right, guys, welcome to another episode of The Buff Show. And today we're going to be talking about probably the number one thing you can do to maximize the sales price on your house if you're a seller.
And I would say it's maximizing your buyer pool.
Yeah.
You know,
Which then maximize. Yeah. But a lot of times, like, how many times do you think you get asked, like, hey, Ben, what should I do to
get my house ready?
Yep. Yeah.
I hate that question.
Yeah. But what's the first thing that you think about when somebody asks you that?
Well, it depends on who's asking and where, if I know their house.
Yeah.
If it's an older home, for sure, first thing I say is FHA, VA requirements, right?
Yeah.
Because those are the biggest hiccups and the scariest parts.
Yeah.
And the other thing, basically, just get it in a generally, if it's not in a good living condition, just clean it and
get it in a
good condition.
Yeah. So, like, I recently, what spurred this podcast is I've had a number of sellers that are like, hey, we want to sell. Like, what's the biggest thing? Like, what's the biggest thing ROI we could do to maximize our sales price? And on one of this situations, he was looking at like replacing the pink countertops and like changing out carpet and a few things. And I was like, hold up, like, you have this deck that's just peeling paint everywhere, missing a few hand railings. I was like, let's get your house to where it will qualify for a FHA VA loan, because then you just opened yourself up to a whole nother set of buyers in this buyer pool. So when we list a house, we have a few like term options that we can list it under: cash, conventional, and then there's like FHA, VA, seller financing. But if the most common ones are cash, conventional, FHA, and VA. If you can open it up to FHA or VA home buyers, you're going to have like access to a whole nother buyer pool if you're under $1 million.
Right. And these are, when we say these are terms of loans, right? So an FHA loan, a VA loan, a conventional loan.
Yeah.
Of what, and each person qualifies for one in different circumstances.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about what it means to have your house like basically approved for a VA or FHA home buyer.
And when we say approved, if you have a buyer that puts your house under contract with a VA or FHA loan, they will actually send out an appraiser / inspector to look at your house to make sure it's in a good enough condition for that lender to give them the money.
Yeah.
So it's not just, make sure it's good enough for them. There's actually going to be someone coming out and looking at your property to make sure it qualifies.
I mean, it's a more stringent process. The appraisers, like Ben said, are more like home inspectors, and the house has a tighter box of parameters that it has to fit within in order for it to be, in order for the lender to be able to grant the loan on the property. So a lot of times the appraiser will go out there, and if there's something not up to par, they will make either buyer or seller fix it and get it up to par, or just not say, hey, we can't lend. We can't lend on this house. So we're going to talk about what the requirements are for getting an FHA or VA loan on a house, and as a seller, what you should be looking for, or buyer really,
right?
And is this house going to qualify? So let's jump into it. What are some of the loan requirements?
So some of the loan requirements, the most where are we at? Oh, as far as, well, it's not really loan requirements, more the property condition. Property condition requirements, because that's a whole nother.
Yeah.
Well, so one of the biggest things is safety and liability. So the home must be free of hazards and conditions that pose a risk to health or safety to occupants, right? Pretty self-explanatory. But things like lead-based paint, faulty wiring, or structural damage, like crumbling set of stairs sometimes will be. A lot of times the lead-based paint is huge on these older homes that have like the wood windows, and it'll just be little flakes of paint peeling up, and they're a stickler for that.
Yeah.
You know, they want, because it could be lead-based paint, they want all paint this up, peeled, and repainted.
Yeah.
Not only for the danger of that, for the safety, but also to preserve their asset that they're loaning on, that the paint's covering and keeping the property in good condition.
Yeah. It's like peeling paint. I see like broken windows. It can't have any broken windows or cracked windows.
The panel has to be breakers, and it can't be fuses or something if it's a really old house.
Hand railings on all the stairs. You can't have any like trip hazards or anything like that. And then they're pretty strict on the roof. The roof can't have any signs of leaks, and it needs to have at least 2 years of life remaining on the roof. And I've had multiple loans where they called out like, hey, you need to fix these vents on the roof or some ridge cap or whatever. So just being aware of like, hey, what's the condition of the roof like?
these appraisers will climb into your attic and look at the bottom to see if there's any signs of leaking and stuff like that too.
Yeah. And then a lot of times on the VA loans, they're doing a pest inspection. And a lot of times they're looking out more for like termites. And people don't realize, but there's quite a few termites. There's subterranean termites in Utah. I've had them on rental properties. I run into a few every year where houses have signs of termites eating the wood. And so if a lot of the VA loans will require a pest inspection, and if there's issues regarding termites or any pests in there, they'll make it be like you'll have to treat it prior.
Remedied before you can close.
Yep. And so, and anytime there's an FHA or VA buyer on your house, there's going to be an FHA or VA addendum that kind of spells out these details. And so the thing to know about the FHA VA addendum is one, it's always like the buyer will always have an out based on the value. So even if the buyer waives their financing and appraisal condition, and if they have a FHA or VA addendum, like that supersedes like that. Like it has to hit the appraisal.
Right. Or they can back out.
Yeah,
they can back out without remedy.
Yeah. And then obviously some of these items. So in that addendum, it'll talk about, okay, well, if there's appraisal required repairs, seller will contribute X towards those repairs, and it's 500, 1,000, like whatever amounts negotiated in there, seller will be in charge of, buyer's in charge of the rest. Same with the pest inspection, which these pest inspections can get up there. Like I've had to have homes treated for like termites, and it was between like $900 and $1,500 for it to be treated. And it's like a 10-year warranty. And then that satisfies the issues with termites.
Right. So a lot of these are requirements, but stuff you pre-do is one, obviously the big paint, roof. I would say, hey, let's just see what the inspector says, unless it's obvious that your roof's leaking.
Yeah.
Right. Because if your roof might be older, but if they
there's
might
no
look
missing
at it,
shingles, like you're probably fine.
Let it ride. Structural soundness, you'll know. I mean, foundations falling off, steps, detaching from the house, stuff like that.
So like on our house, we were selling our house. We had a broken window, so I had to have that replaced. And then we had a spot where the concrete had cracked and settled. And
Too far.
We had somebody come back and jack up the concrete and solve that. So those are just things that you can do ahead because they're probably going to get called out. Another one, hand railings. If you have stairs with
like
no hand railings,
like a basement entrance or something.
Yeah. Or even on your patio, like if there's a patio, like a front porch, and it's higher than like a couple of feet.
I think it's 30 inches.
Yeah. They'll want railings around that. Earthquake straps on water
heaters.
heaters.
That's a big one. Water heaters and expansion tanks on water heaters. They want them strapped.
And then expansion tanks. And then another big one is smoke alarms and CO2 detectors in all the rooms. Not in all the rooms, but
according to code.
Yeah. So if as a seller, I mean, more important than replacing countertops and repainting the whole house, let's get it so it can go FHA or VA, pretty confidently, and then worry about the other stuff. It's really hard.
Have the time and the money.
Yeah, it's hard to gauge an ROI on like countertops or paint, but we can really market it and get you a whole lot more exposure if we can market it to FHA or VA qualified buyers.
Well, and when you start talking about ROIs and what to do, that is the biggest. You do something that opens up your buyer pool by, 2/3 more.
Yeah.
You're from instead of being conventional cash, now you're FHA and VA. You're doubling your buyer pool.
Yeah.
But it's almost not, and that's a guaranteed, right? You're guaranteeing more people. Replacing counters or cabinets or paint, you could almost be shooting yourself in the foot because if your buyer doesn't like your colors, they're going to go, man, I got to repaint this house.
Yeah.
To where you won't get any return on that.
Rarely do we advise sellers to do a whole remodel before selling unless they've had like a lot of experience with that in the past.
And even then, it's more they're doing a remodel for safety and the liability and structural soundness.
Yeah.
That's why they're doing it, not because they're trying to make it prettier, because you just don't make your money back.
It's hard to.
It's hard to, yes.
Yeah. So
another thing I do want to touch, and this is kind of a given, utilities. You got to have sewer, power, water, so
access.
Yeah. So if like your furnace just took a dump and you don't want to fix it, that knocks out a VA inspector will look at your furnace.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Or hot water heater went out or doesn't work, and you're just like, I'm selling it at it as is.
Yeah.
That's something that you want to look at.
Well, and when we bought our house, one of our house, they were just using wood burning stove to heat it because they didn't have a furnace and the radiant heater was broke. And so that would have been an issue, right?
Yep.
That would have been like either the radiant heater needs to be fixed or you need
furnace added or something. Yep. Or we can't loan.
Yep. So those are just a few things, but we wanted to create a quick podcast that just kind of goes over like a quick and easy way or mental thought process on how to really maximize your exposure as a seller. And if you can make sure these safety issues, really they're just safety issues of your house are buttoned up and ready to go, then you're set. We have a listing coming up in an area in South Ogden, and this house has it needs a lot of work. And in order to get the house up to where it would qualify for FHA or VA, it would be like 20, 30, 40 grand. And so my discussion with that seller is like, hey, unless you want to do a full bathroom remodel, I would just market this as a investor special, handyman special, needs some TLC, and we'll find some good buyers that way. So not every home has to be marketed like this. And we sold another one in Roy earlier this year that it needed a lot of work, and I knew there was no way it would go FHA or VA, and we were able to get it sold, but it's just a little bit different of an approach. And then your luxury homes, like
they don't qualify in general, just for the amount of money and the size and stuff like that.
Anything over $1 million, really, it's not going to be FHA or VA most times. I think the highest home I've sold on a VA loan was in the 9s. So. Which is still quite a bit.
Actually, you know what? I've had a VA go over $1 million.
Have you?
Patterson's.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dang.
Leaving names out. Yeah, he was VA.
That's crazy.
But VA is a little different than FHA.
Yeah.
VA is, the veteran benefits. So that one is more of a benefit that they've earned and have ability to use, where FHA is more of a program to help certain home buyers get into a property.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Well, I think this was good. Anything else you'd add in here?
I think we're pretty well perfect to what we do and everything we say. So.
I agree. So when you're ready, give us a call and we'll make
help you get your house FHA and VA ready.
There you go. Till next time. Thanks, guys.